What is going on, GBA? I am the Confusion, and welcome back to the weekly recap. It is week 8 of the GBA, but of course, as you guys all know, I am not alone. I am here with the fantastic Xilicks.
So, GBA fans, it's Xilicks here.
And we have a lot of really good games for you guys week 8, 2/3 of the way through, only 4 more weeks coming up. So this is going to be a really good turning point for a lot of these players. So let's see what we have in store. Looking at the first matchup, we are going to have the Detroit Steelwings versus the New Orleans Pelipper. A really fun game. Chase is going to bring his Jirachi, the Mega Beedrill, Donphan, Thundurus, Cofagrigus, and the Lake and Rock Dusk. And John is going to bring the Garchomp, Escavalier, Piloswine, Tentacruel, Cresselia, and Tornadus Therian. Some mons that you don't see Chase bringing too often, the Mega Beedrill and the Lake and Rock Dusk being huge offensive threats towards John's team, and John bringing some pretty cool mons like that Escavalier built specifically to trap the Mega Beedrill, so we'll see how that ends up turning out. Turn 1, though, we do have that Escavalier coming in, and the Mega Beedrill as well, so this is going just how John planned it. He's going to be able to get Rocky Helmet damage on the Mega Beedrill's U-turn, while also clicking Pursuit for a really strong hit, but because Mega Beedrill is so fast, Chase did not need to invest so much into speed, had a lot of bulk investment, and was actually able to live that Pursuit to maybe bring it in later or even serve as Death Water. So that was really good on Chase's part, but also really good on John's part, bringing that Mega Beedrill so low to the point that if he doesn't get a spin-off, rocks could really be troublesome for that Mega Beedrill. Looking next, though, the Escavalier is going to stay in on the Donphan, and Donphan and Escavalier are going to bring each other pretty low with things like Earthquake and Mega Horn. Earthquake putting that Escavalier into the Swarm range, making it so that Mega Horn had a 50% boost on top of being stabbed and just an overall powerful attack. So as the Donphan is now able to click the Roar, as that Escavalier clicked Pursuit, Donphan is able to live that Pursuit, go for the Roar, and bring in the Tornadus, as Tornadus is just able to pick off that Donphan with the knockoff. And the next thing that happens is that Garchomp is going to be able to come in, and that Mega Beedrill is going to have to be the sack of choice. So that thing not doing too much in this game, only getting a little bit of chip U-turn on the Escavalier early game. But after that happens, Jirachi is able to come in on the Escavalier again and click Fire Punch, completely knocking that thing out, though it was pretty low, so it wasn't going to be doing too much anyways. And the next set of turns is really interesting because it makes a Pokemon on John's team, Tornadus Therian, a little less useful than he thought it would be. The Jirachi is going to click the Toxic on that Tornadus Therian, as Tornadus Therian gets off a pretty nice knockoff. However, the next move is going to be Taunt on the sub, and then Jirachi is going to actually click Iron Head and get a crit on the Tornadus, making it so that if John wanted to save his Tornadus, he would have been able to live the Iron Head plus the toxic damage and switch out for Regenerator, but because of that crit, he doesn't have that chance to switch out, and he is going to have to lose his Tornadus T to that remaining poison damage. So a really big crit, making it so that Tornadus went down. Really nice on Chase's side. The next set of turns that's really interesting is the fact that Tentacruel and Kofag kind of have this little battle between lowering and raising their stats, right? The Tentacruel has the Acid Spray, to make it so that this Calm Mind Cofagrigus, a set we've seen him ring against Jolt, isn't going to be too effective here because Acid Spray is going to make it so that Calm Mind stacking isn't going to be too effective because he's going to be constantly lowering Kofag's SPDF. However, because Kofag is always running the Calm Mind and is able to always boost its special attack, it is going to get some pretty good damage. So the combination of just a bunch of Acid Sprays and Rests and Shadow Balls is going to make it so that the Cofagrigus is going to get sacked, but not without getting around 60% off on that Tentacruel, making it so that Thundurus Therian can come in and kill it with a knockoff. Thundurus getting another kill, which we see is in the league leader, so getting a kill right here is really nice for Chase, as it is going to be able to Flash Cannon that Piloswine. And the reason that's important, the reason it's important that he stayed in and clicked Flash Cannon on that Piloswine is because of the fact that now that Piloswine is in crunch range. And as we know, Lycanroc Dusk is the Scarfer on Chase's team, and eventually, after getting enough damage on certain threats, Crunch would be able to sweep if not too much damage goes onto that Lycanroc Dusk. So we'll see how that ends up turning out. But right now, that Flash Cannon is going to be some pretty good damage on that Piloswine. Jirachi is going to come in on an Ice Shard, and it is actually going to be able to take 2, so it's able to get the Iron Head off and do a ton of damage for Chomp. And again, that Iron Head, really big, because now Garchomp is into crunch range. However, as the Lycanroc Dusk does come in and crunch the Chomp to kill it, Cresselia is going to come in Chase is going to double switch into the Thundurus to try to see if he can get anything off, because he knows it's just going to die to the Ice Shard anyway, so might as well try to get it in on the Cresselia. However, John is not going to play that game. Click Psyshock to kill that thing, and then bring in the Lycanroc Dusk. Again, it's Scarfed, so he has to click Crunch. Now, he clicks Crunch once, and he gets a defense drop. Now, that's really big, because it's going to make the next 2 crunches powerful enough to 2 a KO. However, John is going to take advantage of this opportunity and click Psyshock twice, getting a really big amount of damage off. And after 2 Psyshocks, he is in range of the Ice Shard. So when Piloswine comes in after losing Cresselia, the Ice Shard is going to be enough to pick off that Lycanroc Dusk. And that was a definite close game. Very, very fun to watch. What did you think of the game, Xilicks?
Yeah, it's unfortunate that Chase wasn't able to pull through at the end there. As you mentioned, a very close game. That Tentacruel set with the Acid Spray came in clutch to prevent the Cofagrigus from getting too out of control. And then obviously the Piloswine being able to hang on and getting that final kill there against the Lycanroc. Definitely a close game, as you mentioned. Probably could have gone either way depending on, you know, maybe a couple different plays earlier on. But it is going to be the win for Pokemon. And that win is going to be very good for him, as we are going to see somebody within his division take a loss this week. And that will be our next matchup. It is Tom versus Geo and the San Francisco Giants. The Giants have the roster of the Mew, Shaman, Haxorus, Ditto, Toxapex, and Archeops, while the Sharpedos brought the Landers T, Rotomosh, Roserade, Komodo, Mega Houndoom, and Rhyperior. Starting the battle, Geo is going to get his Stealth Rocks up with his Archeops, as we see Tom Volt Switch with his Rotom to the Houndoom. This brings the Archeops to a very low amount of HP. It will put it into the Defeatist. Super low HP there. The Toxapex will then be brought out, showing that it's a very good switch into the Houndoom. So Tom brings in his Roserade. It does get knocked off by the Toxapex. A good prediction by Geo there, removing the Black Sludge from the incoming Roserade. Tom is then going to get up a layer of spikes, but Geo is going to bring in his Mew to U-turn on the incoming Rotomosh to his Shaman. The Houndoom will then come out, and after taking 2 rounds of rocks and Seed Flare damage, it doesn't have much life left in it, so Tom just decides that he's going to stay into Dark Pulse spam the Toxapex to wear it down. He will get a flinch, which will allow him to get off 3 hits with a Dark Pulse before going down to Toxapex's Scald. Tom will then Volt Switch with his Rotom to pick off that Toxapex, sending in his Roserade to get up a second layer of spikes, and then he goes down to Mew's U-turn. Now it's the Archeops versus Landers T. Geo does have the Tech Endeavor, which will bring the Landers down to a very low amount of HP, as the Landers is going to set up a Rock Polish and takes out the incoming Mew with a Z Tectonic Rage. Geo then is going to use his Ditto to intimidate the Landers, then sack off his Archeops and revenge killing with the Haxorus. He does burn his Z move here to get the KO, which this will give Rhyperior a chance to come in and 2-hit KO the Haxorus, but at this point Tom has nothing left on his team to deal with the Shaman, and it will come in to claim the final 3 kills, giving Geo the 2-0 win over Tom.
Yeah, I have to say, Shaman had a fantastic matchup. I mean, the only Pokemon that really took a hit was Roserade, and Shaman could pack Air Slash, so the coverage was phenomenal, and the only real way Tom had to deal with it was that Roserade and maybe the Mega Houndoom as a counter, as a check to switch that in and kind of revenge it. Otherwise, Geo realized that Shaman put a great amount of work in, saved it to the end, and got nice 3 kills with that thing. So that was really smart on his end, and they both played well. I just thought Geo played the game much better. Let's look into the next matchup, which is the Tampa Bay Luxrays versus the Columbus Chew. Monotui bringing the Gliscor, Keldeo, Snorlax, Mega Charizard X, the Slowking, and the Weavile, and Columbus Chew, Coach Z, bringing Celebi, the Excadrill, Hippowdon Core, Sneasel, Manaphy, and Weezing. Probably one of the quicker games to cover just because of how smooth this game ran for Mono Tui, because right off the bat, although you don't have a great matchup for Mono with the Celebi up against the Keldeo, Celebi does get a U-turn off on the Charizard switch, and it's going to bring in that Hippowdon. Mono's not too worried because he knows he can just burn it. Chew and the Columbus Chew, I mean, they're going to switch out their Hippowdon, doubling into the Sneasel, and ends up getting burned on that thing, making it really useless. And what makes it even more useless is the fact that Coach Z goes for a knockoff on that Megazord X. Not sure what he was thinking there, because I don't think Megazord needed to switch out at that point, but The knockoff on a burned Weave Sneasel does come out. It doesn't do too much, obviously, to the Mega Charizard X, and a Flare Blitz is just going to knock it out. So in turn, you could say that the burn didn't matter because he just knocked it out, but it did help mitigate the damage from the knockoff, which was helpful. The next set of turns is the Manaphy coming in. Mono has balls of steel, does not care to leave his Charizard X in and click Thunder Punch. Manaphy gets the unfortunate 10% para, super annoying, as it's going to sub up. So now it's at super low health and it's paralyzed. All this does is allow Mega Charizard to click Thunder Punch again, get rid of the substitute, and die to the Scald. And now we have a paralyzed, very low health Manaphy on the field, which is not looking too good for the Chew. Next Pokemon that's going to come in is that Choice Banded Weavile, the greater of the two, some would say, and is going to knock off that Weezing, taking away its Black Sludge, bringing it to around half health, which is really nice for the Luxrays because they have a lot of Pokemon that really don't want to deal with a full health Weezing. However, the next set of turns is that Specs Secret Sword, able to knock out that Keldeo once Mono found a decent opportunity to bring that thing in. Obviously, we have little in-between turns of Weezing burning the Slowking. Nothing too major. It's really not going to come into play because after that Secret Sword, killing that knockoff, killing the Manaphy, Slowking is going to beat down a Cursipowdon. So honestly, every single turn, you just see the Columbus Chew and Coach Z trying to pull some sort of tech out, some sort of strategy, and just not working out. The Slowking beats down the Cursipowdon without breaking a sweat, especially because Slowking outsped the Hippowdon thanks to the minus speed that comes with clicking Curse. After the Slowking beats down that Hippowdon, it really comes down to the fact that Curse Snorlax is just going to win that game with a combination of Rest and Sleep Talk Curse and Body Slam. Pretty standard, but always effective when brought to the right matchup. So a quick game, but in Mono's field the entire time. So what do you think of this match?
Yeah, because we did not see the Mienshao get brought by the Chew, they really did not have a way to deal with the Snorlax, especially in the late game. And even had it been brought after the Snorlax gets up a couple curses, it's not really going to be doing too much to break through unless it's like a Life Orb or Bandit set. So yeah, honestly, like just another big loss from the Chew and a win for Mono. Pretty standard game, not much else to say. So let's move into the next matchup. We have the Bronx Bearticks versus the Milwaukee Bewares. The Bearticks have the roster of the Heracross, Zygarde 50%, Necrozma, Magnezone, Acelgor, and Rhydon, while the Bewares have the Entei, Jellicent, Tangrowth, Conkeldurr, Reuniclus, and Bronzong. This battle, in my opinion, is a really great showing of how good of a battler Joey can be, and why people have been claiming that he is such a threat in the Draft League format. We didn't see any of these niche like setup rest sets that we were seeing a lot early in season. Instead, we saw a very offensive hazard stacking setup, which Wolfie's team, despite being incredibly bulky, was not able to stand up to. So let's get into the battle right away. We see the Magnezone against the Jellicent. This will start a trend of the Magnezone volt switching on the incoming Tangrowth, and then Joey will either bring out his Heracross for offensive pressure or the Acelgor for utility. At first, we will see the Heracross coming in, weakening the Jellicent, and then next time, it'll be the Acelgor coming in, getting up a layer of spikes, which is... Those spikes are going to be there for the rest of the game. Wolfie does not have any way of getting rid of them. And Joey will try to Toxic the Jellicent, but Wolfie does have the very interesting tech of the Magic Coat, which will bounce back that Toxic. I believe he was expecting to reflect a layer of spikes, but instead he's going to Toxic the Acelgor, and then he's going to set up the Trick Room on the following turn, but Joey will be able to get the Toxic off on the Jellicent on the following turn. This will then bring that Magnezone back into Volt Switch. This time we are going to see the Necrozma instead of either the Heracross or the Acelgor. The Necrozma is going to knock off the Tangrowth item, and then both sides are going to switch here to the Acelgor and the Entei. Joey does have a great switch into this Entei though, being his Rhydon, which at the cost of being burned by the Entei, he will be able to get up his Stealth Rocks. Again, these will last the entire battle. We'll then see the Zygarde be brought out against the Bronzong, which will set up the Trick Room, but despite the Trick Room being up for most of this battle, it hasn't really mattered for Joey, and he's been using the turns very well in his favor, so that he doesn't get beaten by these slower threats being faster. Then we will see the Reuniclus gets swapped in, which will take Zygarde's 1,000 arrows not very well, a huge chunk of damage going off, and that Reuniclus will quickly be swapped for the Tangrowth. Joey is then going to sack off the Acelgor, which has done its job. It's gotten up spikes, it's toxic the Jellicent, and this will give him a chance to claim a kill with the Guts Heracross, and Wolfie will choose the Jellicent to go down. We will then see the Bronzong against the Rhydon. Again, the Rhydon is able to get quite a bit of chip damage off onto both the Bronzong and also the Conkeldurr, but the Conkeldurr will put it in range to die to the burn placed on it from Entei from before. But again, this gives Joey the chance to revenge kill, this time with Necrozma, and Wolfie will be able to pick off the Necrozma after with his Entei, but then Joey will be able to kill that Entei with his Magnezone in return. And also, the Magnezone will be able to pick off the Tangrowth, or sorry, the Heracross will be able to pick off the Tangrowth on the turn after that. This is really showing how effective the hazards have been for Joey, and after this, we're going to see him make some very safe plays for the rest of the battle because he doesn't want to accidentally pop any heal berries, as Wolfie has brought a lot of like low % healing berries on most of his mons. And he's also trying to reduce the luck factor as much as possible, but to clean up the battle, the Zygarde will take down the Bronzong, the Magnezone will die to rocks, and it's concluded by Heracross getting the final KO on the Reuniclus. It will be a 2-0 for Joey. He could have gotten a higher differential, but he was making some safe plays at the end to not choke away the game. And when playoffs are on the line, he's definitely going to want to make sure he picks up those wins.
Yeah, you cover this game really well. I think it comes down to the fact that the Milwaukee B-Wares suffer in terms of a few things. One is their momentum, right? There's nothing on that team that provides them momentum. And when the Bronx Bearticks brought their Magnezone, I mean, it really put, things in their favor, always being able to switch out without a ground type, and that always put the B-Wares on the back foot, having to take big hits, whether it's from the Heracross or the Zygarde or the Necrozma. Even if the Milwaukee B-Wares had decent switches, they could only take so much hits because of how powerful those Pokemon were. And another thing, just the hazards, right? You see he doesn't have great hazard removal. On this team, didn't bring any hazard removal, and we kind of see how his team can be broken down. Although he's played with this team very well, you can see the flaws and the weaknesses that come along with them. So I think Joey played to those weaknesses very well, so he deserves due credit for that. Let's look into the next game. I'm sure the most highly anticipated game of the week. We have the Montreal Capsules versus the Kansas City Jirachiefs. Aster bringing Fortress, Scolipede, Darmanitan, the Mega Lopunny, the Zapdos, and the Zoroark. And we have the Kansas City Jirachiefs and Jolt bringing the Mega Venusaur, Gardevoir, Arcanine, Seismitoad, Hydreigon, and the Celesteela. Let's just start from the beginning. Turn 1, Fortress versus Hydreigon. Hydreigon is going to click U-turn because, of course, Jolt doesn't want to risk the fact that it may be the Zoroark, so he's going to click a very safe U-turn on his Scarf, as the Fortress is going to be able to set up those Stealth Rocks. The next set of turns is he's going to be able to switch into the Seismitoad, and the Fortress is just going to immediately spin on the rocks. So predicting Stealth Rocks to go up, he completely goes right for that Rapid Spin. The same thing happens the next turn. The Fortress is going to click Rapid Spin on the incoming Stealth Rocks. Now this is a turn that was interesting. This third turn, Jolt decided not to follow the trend, get some Earthquake, expecting maybe that Zoroark to want to come in, while Aster was saying, oh, I know that, I think it was Dom who told him, third turn, make a different move. So he decided to explode, which turned out amazing because he avoided the rocks, which worked out very much so in his favor. What this allows Aster to do is bring in the Zoroark and spam Dark Pulse. The Seismitoad is going to have to be pulled back by Jolt. He's going to have to sack his Arcanine, not wanting to risk losing any damage to the Mega Lopunny, because of course that Zoroark was disguised as Lopunny, so making good use of the ability as well. But just the overall power Zoroark had made it really good in this matchup, because it's able to kill the Arcanine, and it's going to bring that Mega Venusaur really low when he brings that thing in, which is going to allow an offensive Zapdos to come in and click Air Cutter. Now, if you looked at Jolt's side, you would see he was predicting a much more Spadef variant of Zapdos, but Aster brought a much more offensive team, and if you looked at his side, he knew that Air Cutter was going to kill as long as he got some good damage off with the Dark Pulse, and that's exactly what he did. So turn 1, not turn 1, but early on, you have things like the Arcanine and the Mega Venusaur, such huge cores to a defensive build such as Jolt's going down. So Aster really showing some good moves in this battle. The next thing that's going to happen is he's going to keep that Zapdos in on a Specs Gardevoir. Gardevoir is going to have to take a very big Thunderbolt, and the Zapdos is going to have to take a very big Moonblast and get a special attack drop, but that does not matter because the Thunderbolt is still going to be able to kill off that Gardevoir. So not only has he gotten rid of the Mega Venusaur, he's now gotten rid of the Gardevoir, a huge offensive threat on Jolt's side. So he has been playing this game very offensively and very well. The next set of turns is we do have the Scarf Hydreigon coming in to outrage that Zapdos for the kill, and the Scolipede is going to come in next. Click Outrage because, of course, Jolt is locked in, and Endeavor with the Scolipede is going to bring that Hydreigon very, very low. Why is that important, you might ask? Well, it's important because it's going to put that thing into Fire Punch range when it comes to the Darmanitan. The next thing I want to talk about, which is really the final, few turns of this game, which was so important, is the fact that Hydreigon is going to be able to kill the Mega Lopunny with a superpower. Now, because of that, he couldn't go for the Outrage. I don't believe it would have killed, and I think he agreed. So he had to go for that superpower and lower his attack and defense. Now, the Darmanitan is going to come in. Jolt's wanting to play safe, just going to sack off his Celesteela so he can bring in his Hydreigon safely. Unfortunately, Darmanitan, or fortunately, depend on whose side you're looking at, the Darmanitan is going to go for that substitute. Now, what it really came down to is the fact that when Celesteela was in and the sub was on the Darmanitan, Darmanitan was able to click Fire Punch and not kill, and the Celesteela was able to click the Heavy Slam and break the sub. Though, the Jolt did not realize how much bulk was on this Darmanitan, and the fact that Heavy Slam did not guarantee to break that sub made it so that Aster had a couple more chances to sub up. So it really did come down to rolls in this game. He had a couple more chances to sub up. And on the next substitute, Heavy Slam does not break the sub, leaving Darmanitan behind a sub to kill the Celesteela. And again, because of that sub up, Darmanitan is able to take that Outrage and click Fire Punch to end the game in a 1-0 fashion. A very close game, and honestly a game that came down to rolls, though I do want to give credit to Aster. He has been slowly playing much better. I've noticed straight from the get-go, week 1, week 2, he really wasn't playing well. I feel like he was not using his team well. We spoke about how the fact that he was using Sylveon and Milotic passively. We saw Envy take advantage of that and other players. But the fact that he played this game more offensively is, I think, what allowed him to beat the undefeated player of the season. So any advice to Aster would be definitely keep up that offensive momentum. And if he, keeps up on this roll, he might make it to playoffs. So really, really interesting and fun game to watch. I'm very interested to know what you think about it, Xilicks.
Yeah, I mean, I know some people are probably going to be salty about Jolt getting his first loss due to like some damage rolls or whatever, but he did mention himself that he, probably should have gotten the Stealth Rocks up whenever he had the chance, whenever that Fortress went for the boom, and then also at the end there, I believe the Darmanitan needed to be somewhere around 75% for the Hydreigon to knock it out, and I think his plan was to go into Celesteela, have it take the Flare Blitz recoil, and then it would be in range. So even without the Stealth Rocks, that was his game plan. And it's worth noting that even though Jolt didn't execute the strategy he wanted, he still had a plan to win no matter what. But obviously, the no matter what here is there was no Flare Blitz, there was a Fire Punch, and there was also a very bulky substitute that didn't have a chance of being broken by Heavy Slam. So definitely not something he was expecting, and I don't think a lot of people would expect. We have seen Aster run some weird sets this season, but his sets did pull off this time, and he played very well, so I don't want to take anything away from him. Very close battle once again there, so congratulations to him for finally somebody beating Jolt. So let's move into our next battle. This battle, I think, is a really great showing of why not to draft Rain in the Draft League format. We have the Florida Gators versus the Melbourne Rotoms. The Gators have Leavandy, Mega Altaria, Klefki, Buzzwole, Azumarill, Mamoswine, while the Melbourne Rotoms have the Mimikyu, Mega Swampert, Ludicolo, Pelipper, Kartana, and Kingdra. So the reason I say why you shouldn't draft Rain is Gator built a team to counter Standard Rain because Aaron has been bringing Standard Rain pretty much every week, and because of how one-dimensional Rain is, Gator doesn't really have to make some ridiculous predictions to win this battle. He just has to build a team where he can stand up to the rain threats, and on certain mons where he can't stand up to the rain threats, he runs tech moves that can, or tech abilities, which we will see in a moment here, that can put a stop to certain things. So right out the gate, Aaron was at a disadvantage just on team prep alone, and yeah, so let's get into the battle anyways. We are going to see the Leavanny start off against the Mimikyu. The Leavanny is going to be able to break the Mimikyu's disguise and drop its speed with the Electro Web. And then, while the Mimikyu swords dances, since Gator's sashed, he is going to get up his sticky webs before taking a Shadow Claw, and then the Mimikyu will be able to finish off that Leavanny with a Shadow Sneak. But with the sticky webs up, it is going to force Aaron to have to defog at some point, because obviously he does not want his speed getting lowered, because that's the whole point of a rain team. You want to be boosting your speed as much as possible. So then we're going to see the Altaria come out and Mega Evolve, knocking out the Mimikyu. This gives Aaron a chance to set up the rain with his Pelipper. He is going to bring in the Pelipper, get up the rain, and then swap to his Ludicolo. However, that Ludicolo is going to be taking a huge frustration from the Altaria. Not a very great play by Aaron, and then Gator is able to bring in his Azumarill on the Giga Drain, revealing that he's the Sap Sipper, taking no damage at all, and then the Azumarill is able to tank a Scald, which will knock out the Ludicolo with its own Life Orb. Following this, Aaron will defog away the webs, but then this gives Gator a chance to roost up with his Altaria. The Kartana will then be brought out, and Klefki can switch into it and set up the Reflect. With the Reflect up, the incoming Swampert will not be able to do much to Gator's Altaria, allowing it to frustration again the incoming Pelipper, and then roost up what damage it's taken so far. This will then again bring in the Kartana, but with the Reflect still up, the Klefki can both live a Smart Strike and a Z all-out pummeling. We'll then see the Swampert come out again, but then Gator has yet another amazing switch in with his defensive Buzzwole, taking the hit perfectly and then firing off a Toxic at the Swampert. Knowing that the Swampert cannot break the Buzzwole, we then see the Kingdra come out, but as mentioned before, Gator preps so well to take on these rain threats, as Azumarill can just easily switch into that, and it'll be able to soak up hits wherever it's needed. This will then allow Gator to double into his Mamoswine, which of course is carrying the Freeze Dry, and he'll be able to catch the incoming Swampert, clean knocking that out. And then Gator will have to sack off his Klefki to the Kingdra, but Azumarill can come in and get a rest, making that healthy again. The Buzzwole is then brought in to wall the Kartana. We will see the Kingdra come out again, which brings back the Azu. And here, Aaron sets up the rain for the last time, but Gator is able to set up the Tailwind with his Altaria, which will allow for Scarfed Mamoswine to outspeed the Kingdra later on. Though the Altaria will knock out the Pelipper, the Kingdra will come in, and Gator will use this to sack off his Buzzwole, and then win the game with his Scarfed Mamoswine's Freeze Dry, giving the last kills to that Mamo, giving Gator the 3-0 win over Cybertron.
I mean, yeah, like you said, Florida Gators, Gator himself, really prepped so well for this game. I mean, he did not bring a single mon thinking, well, I gotta prep for me, in case he doesn't bring rain. He's like, nope, rain is coming. And of course, it's a week, by week 7, he had brought the same kind of sets, same team composition. I'm pretty sure he's brought in this 6 set of Pokemon every single week. I don't even think with any exception. I could be wrong. I think maybe he brought one of his electric types once. But
he's brought Heliolisk a couple times. Yeah,
so Heliolisk has made an appearance, but otherwise all these Pokemon have been pretty standard on his team, all with similar sets. I mean, when you have, such great, checks like a Sapsipper, a Azumarill, defensive Buzzwole, the Klefki, the Mega Altaria to some extent. I mean, the fact that he didn't prep well for the Sapsipper Azumarill, although it's something you don't see often, naturally, it is something, you have to prepare for. You have to realize that if that thing runs Sapsipper, he's walling your Kartana, your Ludicolo, your Kingdra. So I just think Gator did have a bit of a matchup when it came to that, and especially when it comes to the fact that Cybertron just didn't bother prepping any differently, is I think what's making it so hard for him to, do well with this team as the weeks go on. Although he did succeed with it early on, it's getting more and more challenging because he's becoming more and more predictable. So let's look into the next game we have here. It's going to be the San Diego Chimp Chargers up against the Victorian Shadows. So MV bringing his Empoleon, Kyurem, Tapu Koko, Silvally, Dark, I believe, the Gligar, and the Slowbro, as Necrostevo brings Tyranitar, Megazam, Araquanid, Stoutland, Diggersby, and the Rotom Heat. Now, this game is very interesting because it comes down to a lot of weird and odd plays that we'll get into soon. The first turn we have here is the Tapu Koko versus the Rotom Heat. Of course, we've seen this matchup before. The Rotom Heat is not going to have that electric terrain boost. However, as the Chimp Chargers bring in the Kyurem to hopefully soak up that Volt Switch, because even an Overheat wouldn't do that much. It's a Specs Overheat, so that is going to do a ton to the Kyurem, pretty much lowering it down to red. Thankfully, it will have Roost, but that Overheat was just a solid play on Necrostevo's part, and is going to really help him out, because it's going to allow him to switch into the Araquanid and get a Toxic off, as Kyurem is forced to kind of Roost up there twice. Now, it seems unfortunate, but all this Araquanid does is lure in the SD Empoleon, a Pokemon that really did well this match, really shined, not because it's a Defogger, not because it's a Stealth Rocker, but because it's a Swords Dance variant, and it was fantastic. So let's get into why it was so fantastic. He was able to set up a Swords Dance on the Araquanid as the Araquanid went for Soak. A bit of a misplay, as we'll see in a couple seconds, but in Necrostevo's head it makes sense, because if it's bulky, you want to soak it in Toxic. He was able to get the Spiderweb on the switch in, so he's probably thinking, let's Toxic this down. So the Soak is going to make that Empoleon a pure Water type, simply removing the Steel typing as he sets up a +2, and clicks Drill Peck on the next turn to knock out the Araquanid. Now, I don't know if Necrostevo just didn't notice, but as the Diggersby comes in to click the Earthquake, the Steel typing is no longer there, meaning that Empoleon is going to live the Earthquake, and that is just going to let him get a big Aqua Jet off on Diggersby, and of course he's going to be forced to switch Necrostevo into the Stoutland to take another pretty decently hard-hitting Aqua Jet. MV not wanting to stay in is going to be forced out into the Slowking because it's physically bulky and has that rocky helmet. He is going to decently handle that Stoutland to some extent, as we'll see, just because Stoutland is such a monster. He is going to be able to switch out the Stoutland into the Zam, and the Scald is going to burn the incoming Zam, a trend we have seen very often. The Alakazam coming in and all the time taking these statuses, this time taking a burn, making it so that when he Mega Evolves, he will no longer be immune to it because he will lose the Magic Guard. What that is going to cause is the Mega Zam to click Psychic on the Gligar, bring that thing to about half, especially with the Spadef drop. He's going to be forced to switch that thing out, though he makes a good play, and now a Signal Beam is going to come out on the Silvally Dark as the Tailwind goes up. So Silvally is now going to be able to chip the Tyranitar to about red in trade for some rocks, and then the Specs Rotom Heat is going to have to die to that Overheat. The Specs Rotom Heat is going to kill the Kyurem. Now, the next set of turns is really interesting. The Slowbro is going to be able to kill the Zam with the Scald, as he's kind of forced to switch that out. And then we see the Gligar versus the Rotom Heat. Rotom Heat's locked in and is clicking Volt Switch, and Gligar's just clicking Earthquake because eventually the Rotoms will have to switch. Now, because the Gligar has Aerial Ace, he's not completely walled, he just has to make sure he clicks Aerial Ace at the right times. Unfortunately, Necrostevo is able to catch him on an Aerial Ace click and bring in that Tyranitar. Not going to be a big deal because Gligar does eventually kill that Tyranitar, but it does allow Stoutland to come in and kill that Slowbro. But the Sand plus the Rocky Helmet really helps, because now, after all that damage on all these Pokemon, the Empoleon with that Aqua Jet comes in, picks off the Stoutland, picks off the Diggersby, and picks off the Rotom Heat. A great showing on MV's side. I mean, seeing that Empoleon get 4 kills is something you will never see too often. I mean, I don't know the next time you're going to see Empoleon come to a league match and get 4 kills, but the SD variant really helped him out. If he brought these Sticky Webs, Empoleon getting a Defiant boost would have also helped. So, I mean, the Swords Dance really did put him in a great position, and just the priority in Aqua Jet did prove to be very handy. What do you think of this game?
If we saw the Defiant boost into an SD, that might have just been a wrap right there. But MV, he's no stranger to the special attacking water types, running physical sets with Swords Dance. We've seen him do it with Keldeo. I even believe that we've seen him do it with Empoleon last season. I may be mistaken on that, but I know he's run Aqua Jet on that thing a lot of times to get some surprise KOs in there. And this week was no exception. You know, he he had the SD set. He was able to put in a lot of damage early on to that Diggersby, and was able to clean up the game with Aqua Jet later on. So it's just he just brings weird sets and does well with them almost always. There have been very few weeks where his creative sets don't work out. So let's move on to the next matchup. We have the Philadelphia Scizors versus the Borussia Donphan. The Scizors have the roster of Tapu Bulu, Greninja, Nihilego, Slurpuff, Victini, and the Uxie, while the Borussia Donphan have the Garbodor, Tapu Fini, Kyurem Black, Cobalion, Crocodile, and Mega Manectric. Starting the battle, we see the Victini and the Manectric both swapping, Victini using the U-turn to go to the Tapu Bulu, and the Manectric Volt switching afterwards to the Garbodor. This allows Chimp to bring in his Uxie and set up a Calm Mind, but Lars' response to this is going to be his Assault Vest Kyurem Black, which can take hits and fire back with the Shadow Claw. The Kyurem will come out on top of the situation, knocking out the Uxie. However, the Uxie was able to get a large amount of damage onto the Kyurem before going down, so neither side came out of that exchange unscathed. Chimp is then going to send in his Nihilego, then doubles to the Greninja as we see the Crocodile come out. This lets Greninja to set up a spike while Lars sends in his Tapu Fini and gets a Nature's Madness against the incoming Tapu Bulu. The Bulu is then just going to Leech Seed and start recovering against the incoming Garbodor, and Chimp is then going to have to swap as he does not want to take a Gunk Shot, and he's going to bring in his Greninja, which will take that Gun Shot, taking quite a lot of damage, but he will U-turn out though on the Tapu Fini to his Nihilego, and then he's able to set up some Stealth Rocks and get a lot of damage off against the Crocodile before going down to that Crocodile. It was enough damage, however, for the Victini to come in and U-turn to the Tapu Bulu, which will kill the Crocodile. Lars then decides to set up his rocks with the Cobalion, taking a big superpower from the Tapu Bulu. However, now the Tapu Bulu having the defense drop, there's a chance that the Cobalion can knock it out. So Chimp will send in his Victini, which can resist the Iron Head, but added with the Stealth Rocks damage, its switch-ins are very limited. Lars will then swap in his Kyurem to sack it off to the hazards, and then bring in his Manectric, which leads Chimp to do the same, sacking his Greninja to the hazard, so then he can bring in his Victini, which will barely survive the hazards, and this will grant Chimp the ability to kill the incoming Tapu Fini. And that being said, Lars does still have a good chance of winning this game, because what he can do now is he can bring in the Manectric, which will intimidate the Victini, allowing the Manectric to survive. He can take a hit, Volt Switch, killing the Victini, and then the Garbodor should be able to win the game in combination with the Cobalion. However, the Victini is going to flinch the Manectric with a Zen Headbutt, which will prevent the Manectric from getting the kill, and then this will force Lars to sack off his Garbodor to the Victini, so that way the Victini will die to the aftermath damage. So now Lars is left with only his Cobalion, and there is a chance of him still winning, because if his Cobalion is able to flinch the Tapu Bulu with the Iron Head, he can win the game, and he is going to get the flinch. He will flinch that Tapu Bulu, preventing the Tapu Bulu from using the superpower to knock it out. However, Chimpack doesn't care, because he did the right play by setting up the Grassy Terrain, which whenever the Slurpuff comes in, it will activate the Grassy Seed, giving that Slurpuff the Unburden boost, and because of all the damage the Tapu Bulu was able to do the Cobalion earlier in the game, the Slurpuff will outspeed and knock out the Cobalion. Unfortunately, there was a bit of flinch hacks going on towards the end, but at least Lars was able to bring it down to a 1-0 instead of a 2-0, and that will be a 1-0 in Chimpack's favor.
Yeah, this game was a very good showing of Slurpuff and Tapu Bulu at the end. Something I actually didn't even catch when he made that transition earlier on, but he played with that very well. The Victini also just showing how it's a huge monster. Also, things like Cobalion, just putting in a lot of work with that Iron Head. So, overall, a really good game. Garbodor, a Pokemon you don't see too much, being a little bit of a nuisance, but overall, a pretty good game on both sides, and enjoyable one to watch. But let's get into the conference breakdown, yeah?
So taking a look at the conference breakdown, it's worth noting that if you guys want the full in-depth analysis of the playoffs, make sure to watch the video that was uploaded earlier this week, which goes over which teams are no longer have a chance for playoffs and which teams they might have a chance, and then which teams definitely have like it locked in at this point. So again, if you want the full breakdown, make sure to go check out that, but we will still be going over big changes, mainly the big takeaway from this is the Kansas City Chiefs taking their first loss, which will put MV at the top overall. As well, in the Akala division, Tom has fallen a bit further behind, and now the Luxrays and Pelipers are basically tied. The only thing separating them is differential. We will also see now the Gators are still ahead of the Sizzlers based on differential. And yeah, that's pretty much the big, I guess, not differences, but just like talking points. Do you have anything to add to it?
I mean, yeah, you covered the big ones. I mean, the only other thing I would mention, which of course you can guys go check out the playoff picture. They cover this more in detail, but certain teams like the Columbus Chew, Victorian Shadows out of the picture. Certain teams like the Chim Chargers and the Giraffe Chiefs pretty much have that on lock. The fact that we see the Giraffe Chiefs, they were number 1 so far, but now they're actually right behind MV, who's able to pick up a win. And although they have equal records, it's the differential, the 2 differential points, that's currently putting MV above the Giraffe Chiefs and Jolt. So that's really interesting to note. But yeah, certain teams, I mean, the Detroit Steel Wings, they're not completely out. If they could win every single game, Geo lose every single game, and the Pony Division not do so well, he has a chance. I mean, I still think it's almost anyone's chance to really get in, except for the teams that really haven't been doing a great showing. The Montreal Capsules, I'm not really sure if they still have a chance. I don't really think so, looking at how well the Gators and the Scissors have been doing. But it's interesting to see how the picture is going to turn out as we continue. Overall, the records seem interesting. The Columbus Shoe really just not doing so hot, going 0-8. I mean, that.
Yeah, with the minus 34 as well.
Minus 34 is rough, I have to say.
The Victorian Shadows are also without a win, but minus 25 is definitely looking a lot better than minus 34.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, it's a lot, and I mean, let's see, it's not good. The Melbourne Rotoms not doing so great either. They're at the bottom of their division, and I'm not sure if they could pull out a chance, but overall, though, it's interesting to see how these, standings in conference, are going to change, though we are seeing pretty much how this is going to turn out. So please stay tuned to the playoff picture to see what is going to happen as these weeks come by, the last third of the season. Lastly, let's talk about our league leaders, the Pokemon that have been destroying the leagues recently. We have at the top the Philadelphia Scissors rocking out with Nihilego at the top with 13 kills, 5 deaths. And then we see the Mega Lopunny and the Thunderous Incarnate with the same amount of kills, 13 kills. But what puts them behind is 2 extra deaths for the both of them. They're interchangeable. It's more so the fact that Mega Lopunny is above in the alphabet. But they are in some tied for second. And then we do have the Breloom, Altaria, both for 11 kills. We have the Mega Pinsir, the Cobalion, and the Haxorus all for 9 kills, and the Zygar 10% in Weavile for 8 kills. So the 4 through 10 looking like a great set of, I'm honestly, again, haven't been surprised. Usually there are a few surprises. There really isn't a single Pokemon here that I'm surprised to see. We do see some more Megas. I still think it's the 3 same Megas. Pretty much just the 10 same mons we've been seeing. Of course, there are Pokemon that are very close. So again, interesting to see if maybe they rise up. But for now, we've been seeing these league leaders do very well. And I'm interested to see how this is going to end off and who's going to kind of lead the way for Season 8. What do you think?
Couple things I want to add. The Lopunny has climbed a huge amount in just a short few weeks. The Altaria as well. Both of them were not even on the board, and now they're both in the top 5. The Pints are taking a bit of a drop down. We may see it get some more kills in these last couple weeks, though, and it may reclaim its position towards the top. But also, another thing I really want to talk about is that Zygar 10% has only been brought to 2 games, and it's still holding on with an 8-0 differential. That's pretty ridiculous.
I didn't even notice that. That is insane.
Yeah, everything else there has played at least 4, most of them playing anywhere between 6 and 8, but that Zygar 10% has only been brought twice, and it got 4 kills both times with no deaths.
That actually is crazy. The other thing I'm noticing is the fact that Breloom wasn't brought this week, still sitting at number 4. Also really impressive. Also only brought to around 4 games, but the way Jolt plays with that really does show its efficiency in the format. So Yeah, like you said, really interesting to see. I didn't even pick up on that. Yeah, Zygarde only being brought once by each player, right? It was picked up, dropped and then picked up, both of those players, bringing in once, getting 4 kills each. That's absolutely insane. It is at the bottom, might get beaten out if we don't see it brought to the next couple of games, next 4 games, but we'll see how that turns out. But that is going to be it for week 8 of the GBA. If you guys enjoyed, please let us know. And other than that, we will catch you guys next week on Wednesday for week 9 of the weekly recap. Peace.